Welcome back, and joining me with more insight on the day's trade is Jordan Toy from Legacy Family Wealth. Thank you so much for your time, Jordan. Quite a busy day today. As expected, we did have a budget at 3.0 being delivered by the finance minister, and the rand has actually behaved. Is that a signal of the markets being calm about the budget?
So I think it's largely that it was expected and that this is sort of going to go through the motions and that it'll largely be rubber stamped. And we knew that VAT was likely off the table. So a lot of the boxes I think had already been ticked leading up to this. And I think that the speech just gave us sort of confirmation of that. Definitely a move in the right direction, right? I think to have this budget become problematic and now we're having a fourth attempt at it could lead to some serious trouble for the rand. But, you know, all in all, I looked at it and went, and I often look at sort of politics when you have outcomes like this is sort of if no one's perfectly happy, then we've probably settled somewhere in the middle where, you know, everyone's got something of what they want, but not everything. And I mean, that's exactly what a coalition government is about, right? So we've got to work together, compromise, you know, to get something, you've got to give something in these scenarios. So, you know, largely positive. I think the fuel levy was sort of one of the few places we needed some additional revenue. It was pleasing to see that there was also some cuts on the expenditure side. Naturally, it's never a good outcome, right? We'd rather not be cutting budgets. It's obviously got to be deployed somewhere. But the space we find ourselves in with little economic growth, there's only two sort of sides of the equation that we can work with. The one thing I also wanted to mention is I thought it was kind of to our advantage in hindsight that we actually had the time to now sort of see what was happening with tariffs, etc. So, I mean, when we first sat in February, we were in a vastly different place. Sort of tariffs were on the horizon, but considering that we've had time to look at what the sort of global picture looks like, I think that's where these growth downgrades have come from. So we've kind of seen, all right, look, the year's not looking like as good as we thought it would in February. Let's revise our forecast so we have a better picture of what we're going to end up sort of at the end of the year with. So all in all, I think largely a good budget. We'll see, obviously, how things play out over the year. But yeah.
Okay, well, talking about tariffs and the U.S., of course, we know that with the sweeping policy changes came some that affected South Africa. And actually, to maintain Cyril Ramaphosa and the rest of the GNU team, well, some of the GNU team are in the U.S. right now. And actually, that meeting should be starting now or sometime soon. I know that there are live updates on a number of publications. What will you be looking out for there?
So certainly an important meeting for let's be honest, the entirety of South Africa. It's a meeting that I would love to be sort of in the room to hear what's going on. There's obviously some sort of big personalities, a lot of power concentrated in one room. You've got, you know, sort of the two successful sort of private sector individuals, the billionaires in Elon Musk and Mr. Rupert, and then sort of obviously our president and the US president. So lots of different personalities, certainly between the two presidents and the two sort of private sector individuals. So I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion, but we know it's a high stakes discussion for us. Right? Trade is definitely high up on the agenda. We know that our president, Mr. Ramaphosa, is a shrewd negotiator, but he's sort of walking into a space where, you know, you're going toe to toe with also a very, very skilled negotiator. So
you know what? Just on the private sector front, I mean, Elon is not a favorite in the country at this point, and I'm really, really happy that Johan Rupert is there. Hopefully, he can speak some sense. Let's go into some of the company results that came out in company news. Actually, we did have results from Southern Sun. Of course, one of the hospitality operators that seems to be on a solid growth footing. Of course, I know that with their geographical diversity, they don't always perform well in all the regions. Just talk to me about they perform, because they seem to be on a great path of solid growth.
So certainly a well-known South African brand, you know, very recognizable. They've got, as you mentioned, a presence sort of across the country, but also outside of our borders. So a well-known brand, well-established, diverse portfolio of properties, right? Yes, they're concentrated in obviously the hotels and leisure space, and naturally they depend pretty significantly on sort of tourism and travel, but also business travel is a big aspect. I mean, down the road here in Sandton, you've got the convention center, which is a massive space, and also the hotel obviously benefits off the back of conferences and business travel. So I think we saw some pleasing improvements in certain metrics. EBITDA was up. I think earlier you mentioned headlines earnings per share was quite strongly up. Strong movement in the dividend. So sort of on the good front, those are some of the figures we looked at. Also saw an improvement in the sort of the picture around debt. It was pleasing to see, and I know you mentioned it just now, the spending that they've been doing on refurbishments, right? It's obviously very important in the hotel space, and especially when you have a big property portfolio and a number of hotels, there's a significant amount of spending that's got to take place regularly to keep those hotels relevant, to keep them at the standard that Southern Sun expects. So on the negative side, I suppose some of the political unrest in Mozambique obviously affects some of their properties there. You also had KZN, the sort of performance out of the local, the provincial sort of performance there, a little bit down. But on the whole, I think a pleasing set of results out of Southern Sun.
All right. Well, an announcement that I didn't expect today was one that came from Sanlam and TymeBank, saying that they are coming together to form a joint venture on retail credit. Talk to me about, what this means in this kind of landscape and competitive landscape in that kind of credit financial space.
Very surprising announcement to me too. When I was going through SENS earlier during the day, I was also struck by that. It was quite an interesting one to come out of the works. There is a common shareholding sort of further up in the shareholding structure of TymeBank and Sanlam. So I think not too unusual that you have this pairing up in that space. But one that, to me, on the surface, without having a detailed look at what are the numbers going to work out to in this space. But TymeBank's got quite a number of customers. They're obviously a digital business. To combine that with Sanlam's credit book, I think could be an interesting pairing, and we'll see obviously a bit of cross. I don't want to say cross-subsidization, but cross-selling, different products. Each bank has something to, or rather each business has something to bring to the table that maybe the other businesses' customers don't have. So one that I can't see it having a negative impact on either of the two of them. So certainly an interesting announcement today.
Yeah, and Sanlam's been very, very aggressive with its partnerships and really something that has put them in solid footing in terms of its growth. Well, where are you seeing growth today? Your stock pick, Jordan.
So one I wanted to revisit. I think it's worthwhile sort of circling back. Obviously, markets move, news comes out. So I wanted to talk about Eli Lilly today, which is, if anyone's not familiar, it's a very big global pharmaceutical company. Mostly in the news nowadays for their sort of weight loss and diabetes medication. And last time we were here, we were talking around in March, sort of everyone's familiar with the injections that they've got, which are sort of the leaders, I'd say, in that space alongside Novo Nordisk. I think the improvement that we've seen recently is in April, they had some test results out. So the big thing at the moment is all of these weight loss drugs are injections, right? A lot of people don't want to inject themselves. And a pill is kind of sort of the next frontier that a lot of these pharmaceutical firms are pursuing. So we had some test results out in April. One of these clinical studies came out, and it basically showed that that pill produced similar weight loss sort of effectiveness compared to the likes of Novo Nordisk's injection, and very close to the same results that their own brands of injections have. So there's still a long way to go. There's lots of other trials on the go in sort of different samples or population groups. So we'll see how it pans out. But they are head and shoulders ahead of everybody else by all appearances. I mean, Pfizer discontinued the development on their own weight loss pill a number of months ago. So we're talking sort of potentially years ahead of the competition in this space. We still need to see that it actually works, but these indicative results that you see from these earlier studies are showing us, okay, it does work. We're not seeing sort of more negative side effects than the current injections have. So I think one that continues to position them well, we need to see the continuation of that, right? We need the studies to continue to show that it works and that it's safe, and that the FDA ultimately potentially approves that. Hopefully early next year. Eli Lilly's guided towards sometime in the next year that might be approved. So one that we think positions them well to sort of outperform their peers in the near future, provided that performs.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for that information. Really very insightful conversation on what has moved investors' money today. And that was Jordan Toy from Legacy Family Wealth.